Hello, I'm Catherine Court.
And I'm Kimberly Court.
And we're the owners of Pilates on 5th here in Manhattan and the creators of Pilates on 5th online. So today we want to talk about how to train like an athlete, more specifically 5 ways that you can train like an athlete.
Right.
So first thing, proper form. So Kimberly's going to grab these weights here. We just picked a random exercise. So one thing that you'll notice if you watch videos of football players or tennis players or golfers training, their form is perfect. So Kimberly's going to turn to the side. So she's going to do bicep curls with proper form.
Oh.
Yes, with proper form. So be mindful of your posture. Now do it like
This is a mic pack, by the way.
It's not a hunch. So now do it like you might see someone doing it.
If you're too heavy, if your weights are too heavy.
If the weights are too heavy
Or
you're
worse.
your form, right, or you don't want to leverage. So that was a very good point. So what Kimberly just mentioned is if you pick a weight that's too heavy for you and your form is compromised, it's much better to go down to a lower weight that you can manage and then build up with proper form. That's going to be better for your core as well. Do those 2 things that you did again. So these are super light. We all know that Kimberly, almost anyone can do
I'm not going to injure myself with 2 pounds.
2 pound weights, but for illustrative purposes only. If these were too heavy and they put her into flexion when she picked them up, then doing the exercise here, all you're really doing is straining the muscles of the back and the front. Or if you can't bend the elbows because your biceps aren't strong enough, you might find yourself leveraging with your back to really.
And just so you know why that's, I have 2 bulldogs, and when I pick them up, the only way I can hold them is to arch my back and put them like over my hips. Not good.
It's effective.
It's effective, and they get to the vet that way, but it's not smart. Not smart.
So proper form is very, very important. So don't sacrifice form for anything, because that will be a building block of great strength. So next we want to talk about variation, and variation in terms of muscles worked and in the type of training that you do. So we're going to grab the stability ball, and I'm going to hold the stability ball tight. We're going to put Kimberly on the ground, and she's going just to do a regular shoulder bridge first.
Ooh.
Oh, with moving the mic pack first is always a good idea. Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
It's a painful little thing. So she can do a shoulder bridge here, which is obviously working the glutes. And so we're going to look for that, again, proper form, straight line between the armpit and the knee, and come down. But then we can also vary that same exercise by doing it on a stability ball. Now with the stability ball, we've created instability, which is kind of ironic, but anyway. So now if she's bridging up here, more muscles have to be recruited to negotiate the imbalance of the stability ball. So she's still working her glutes, but we varied the way to train the glutes. And similarly, go ahead and come to your knees. If you do glutes one day, you don't want to do the same workout every single day. So then she could come and she could do push-ups here, just balance with her elbows on the
Yeah, I have a
ball.
tail of a mic
Yes.
pack, so I could do,
Push-ups here, or you could, you just want the variation. You don't want to do the same thing. Some people say, oh, I do yoga every single day. Yoga's great, but every single day you might be missing something somewhere else. Same thing with Pilates. Obviously, we love Pilates, but you can vary your Pilates workout too, so that you're training different aspects of your functional fitness with every exercise. So that's with the variation. So next we're going to talk about consistency.
Yes. Now, one thing with consistency is it's better to do, especially if you're starting something new, a little bit every day than it is to do something an hour one day where you've depleted all of your resources for the rest of the week. So one thing about athletes is most of them, they practice every day and they practice well every day. And it's very important to make sure that if you find you're so fatigued that you can't maintain proper form or you're just sloppy, then it's probably best to do, which we're going to talk about in a second, active recovery. And we've been watching a lot of tennis lately. And if you look at the tennis players, and I'm kind of flipping back to the technique a little point, is there is a technique to a serve. No one just walked out and picked up a tennis ball and a racket and thought, well, let me see what I can do with this. Everybody learned the proper way to do it. So that's true with any athletic endeavor, whether it's Pilates or yoga or dance or badminton, anything. Everything has a technique. So
Indeed. And one more thing before we move on to the active recovery about the consistency is that some people think, oh, I don't have 45 minutes, so I'm not going to do a thing.
Right.
10 minutes will make a difference. You can do 10 minutes of core activating exercises and it's something. And most athletes, you'll find, do something every day except on the days that they have designated for active recovery, which we're going to talk about now. So to talk about the active recovery, we have brought our 3-in-1 foam roller and our massage balls. So what we mean by active recovery is not just sit down and do nothing and lie on the sofa and watch TV and eat bonbons all day. Does anyone eat bonbons?
I would.
Okay,
So.
yeah. So for example, in this exercise here, Kimberly is working her hamstrings. She's massaging her hamstrings, and by rolling backwards a little bit.
I'm just going to come forward because I feel like I'm rolling off the...
So she can work the belly of her hamstrings by rolling backward up as well. And come back. Or she can go to her side and work her TFL, glute medius, as well. And so it's still an active endeavor. That's why it's called active recovery.
Right.
It's not slothful recovery.
Yeah, off days should be used to recover. That's why we call it active recovery. And you can do things like we did something last week where both of our hamstrings were shot. And what I did a lot of the time, and also was because our dad was visiting, is I would just stretch my hamstrings in a very simple way.
Right.
I think for me, this is simple. And it was just, they were so tight and upset and angry with me that was my way of recovering, is I didn't just do nothing, but I slowly stretched. But stretching doesn't have to be to your end range every time. Stretching can be releasing.
Movement in moderation can be nice for the joints. It's just nice and gentle on the joints. So we also have our massage balls here as well that you can use for your shoulders, you can use for your hips. As Kimberly mentioned, our dad was in town last week, and Kimberly taught him how to use the ball to massage his hip against a wall. So it's very, very intense if you're lying on your side with all of your weight going into the ball. But if you just imagine that this is a wall and you place the ball against the wall and then you can lean into it, you can actually gauge the amount of weight that you place into the ball, and it's a really nice way to do it. It's a perfect thing to do on an off day. Yeah, she just found the hack.
I found a spot. I'm like, okay, wow, I wasn't trying for that.
And then last but not least, we'll go ahead and stand up for this one. Last but not least, you want to make sure that you eat and drink and sleep well.
Drinking means water.
Yeah, drinking means water. I mean, that's not to say that you can't indulge, you can't have a little fun, but most athletes, especially when they're training or even in the off season, they eat well, they drink, they're mindful of hydration,
Right.
and they make sure they get enough sleep. I don't think any of us are at our best when we don't get enough sleep.
Right.
And that's not to say that if you go out and you eat like a prime rib and 4 glasses of wine that you derailed everything for life. Think of the time in the terms of a week.
Yes.
In the course of a week, what did you do?
Right, exactly. And if it helps you to think of it in terms of every 3 days, if that works for you, that's fine too. The point
I like
being,
every 3 days.
yeah, the point being is that if you know you splurged one day, then you think and you know you have to splurge the next day because you've got another event, then you think, okay, the 2 days after that, I'll be a little more careful. And that's fine because you have to live your life and enjoy it. It's no fun to every time you go out thinking of the knots, thinking of I can't do this and I can't do that. So
It's very depressing.
balance.
Yeah, so those are 5 ways to train like an athlete.